I thought getting lost in the woods would be the worst thing that happened that weekend. I was wrong. The worst part wasn't the cold, the endless trees, or the fact that my phone died when we needed it most. The worst part was realizing that the person standing beside me, my best friend Cole, was the one person I couldn't stop thinking about. And once we were stranded out there together, there was nowhere left to hide from that. My name is Parker, and this happened last fall. It started with what was supposed to be a simple weekend hiking trip. Cole had been begging me for months to take a break from work and get out of the city. "You're becoming one of those guys who forgets sunlight exists," he told me one Friday afternoon. I looked up from my laptop. Funny coming from someone who spends 6 hours a day playing video games. That's different. How? I touch grass between matches. I laughed despite myself. That was the thing about Cole. He could make me laugh even when I was stressed out of my mind. We'd been friends for almost 5 years. We met during our first year of college and somehow never drifted apart. Most people assumed we'd known each other forever. Maybe because we acted like it. We argued constantly. We stole each other's food. We knew every embarrassing story the other person had. And somewhere along the way, I made the mistake of falling for him. Not that I ever told him. Cole was supposedly straight, or at least that's what I always assumed. He dated girls, talked about girls, had girls flirting with him practically everywhere we went. Meanwhile, I became very good at pretending I wasn't completely distracted every time he smiled at me. So I kept my mouth shut. For years. And honestly, I thought I was doing a decent job. Then came the hiking trip. The trail was supposed to take 6 hours. Easy enough. A moderately challenging route through a large state forest a few hours outside the city. Nothing extreme. Just enough to make us feel adventurous. When we arrived at the trailhead Saturday morning, the weather was perfect. Cool air, blue skies, leaves turning orange and gold. The kind of scenery people post online with captions about finding themselves. Cole stepped out of the truck and stretched. "Damn. What? This is exactly what I needed." I glanced over. Big mistake. He was wearing a fitted gray shirt that probably should have been illegal. His dark hair was messy from the drive. And he looked annoyingly good. "Try not to get emotional," I said. He smirked. "No promises." I rolled my eyes and grabbed my backpack. The hike started smoothly. We spent the first couple of hours talking about everything and nothing. Work, movies, friends from college. A disastrous date Cole had gone on the week before. Apparently the girl spent 20 minutes explaining why the moon landing was fake. I almost left. Almost. I wanted dessert first. I laughed so hard I nearly tripped over a root. Cole pointed immediately. "Careful. Shut up. You almost died. It was a root. It was a dangerous root. You're an idiot." He grinned. "Yet here you are." The stupid thing was that moments like that were exactly why I liked him. Being around Cole felt easy, natural. Like no matter how bad my day was, he could somehow make it better. Which made keeping my feelings secret even harder. Around noon we stopped near a stream to eat lunch. I sat on a large rock while Cole attacked a sandwich like he hadn't eaten in weeks. "You're staring," he said suddenly. I nearly choked on my water. "What? You've been looking at me." "No, I haven't." He raised an eyebrow. "You literally were." "I was looking at the stream." "The stream is over there." "Damn it." I looked away immediately. Cole laughed. "Relax." I was kidding. My heart was still racing. Sometimes I genuinely wondered if he knew. If maybe he'd figured it out years ago and was too polite to mention it. But whenever that thought appeared, I pushed it away. Because if he knew, things would have changed. Wouldn't they? A few hours later, the trail became rougher. The path narrowed. The trees grew denser. And eventually we reached a fork. I checked the map, then checked it again. Something didn't look right. "You good?" Cole asked. "Yeah." "You made that face." "What face?" "The face you make when you're pretending everything is fine." I frowned at the map. The marker didn't match what I expected. Not exactly, but close enough. Probably. "I think we go left." "You think." "Don't start." "That doesn't sound confident, Parker." I sighed. "Left." "Okay." We headed down the left trail. And that was the decision that changed everything. At first nothing seemed wrong. The trail continued normally. We kept walking, talking, joking. But after another hour, a strange feeling settled into my stomach. The landmarks didn't match the map anymore. The terrain looked unfamiliar. And eventually the trail simply ended. We stepped into a clearing surrounded by trees. No signs, no markers, no obvious path forward. Just forest. Endless forest. Cole looked around, then looked at me, then back at the forest. Tell me this is part of the plan. I stared at the map. My stomach dropped, because for the first time all day, I realized something. We weren't where we were supposed to be, not even close. And as the sun slowly began sinking lower behind the trees, I looked at Cole and said the words neither of us wanted to hear. I think we're lost. I think we're lost. The words hung in the air longer than I expected. For a second, Cole just stared at me, waiting for me to laugh, or tell him I was joking. When I didn't, his expression changed. Seriously. I looked down at the map again, then at my phone. No signal. Of course. No, I said quietly. Not seriously. Extremely seriously. Fantastic. Cole turned in a slow circle. Nothing but trees. Towering pines in every direction. The kind of forest that looked beautiful when you knew where you were, and terrifying when you didn't. Okay, he said. How lost are we? I hated that question, mostly because I didn't know the answer. Maybe a little. Parker. Maybe a lot. Great. I rubbed my forehead. This isn't helping. I'm aware. The sun was already lower than I liked. We'd spent longer hiking than planned, and now every minute mattered. Let's stay calm. That's exactly what people say before things get worse. I couldn't help laughing. Even now, even standing in the middle of nowhere, Cole somehow managed to be funny. You done? No. Good. Because I have several complaints. For the next 30 minutes, we tried retracing our steps. At first, it seemed simple. Just go back the way we came. Except the deeper we moved through the woods, the more everything looked exactly the same. Trees, rocks, leaves, more trees. Eventually, even I had to admit we weren't making progress. The realization hit hard. Because up until then, I'd convinced myself we'd solve this quickly. Now I wasn't so sure. The daylight was fading. The temperature was dropping. And my phone battery was down to 12%. Cole's had already died. Tell me yours works. Barely. He groaned. I knew I should have bought that portable charger. You say that every trip. And one day I'll be right. By late afternoon, we stopped near a large fallen tree. Neither of us said much. The mood had changed. Not panic. Not yet. But definitely concern. I checked the map again. Same result. Nothing made sense. Hey! I looked up. Cole was watching me. You okay? I laughed bitterly. We're lost in a forest. That wasn't what I asked. The concern in his voice caught me off guard. I'm fine. Liar. What? You always get quiet when you're worried. I looked away. The truth was I felt responsible. I was the one who chose the route. The one who insisted we could handle it. The one who apparently couldn't read a map properly. This is my fault. Cole immediately shook his head. No. It is. No. I took the wrong trail. And we're both adults. I sighed. Still didn't feel better. Cole stepped closer. Parker. I met his eyes. We'll figure it out. His confidence was strangely reassuring. It always had been. Even back in college. Whenever everything felt overwhelming, Cole somehow made problems seem smaller. Manageable. It was one of the things I loved most about him. Not that I'd ever tell him. As evening approached, we accepted reality. Walking around in the dark would be dangerous. We needed to stay put. At least until morning. Fortunately, both of us had some camping experience. Not enough to enjoy the situation, but enough to survive it. We found a relatively sheltered area between several large trees, collected dry branches, built a small fire, and settled in for what was shaping up to be a very long night. The forest felt completely different after sunset. Every sound seemed louder, every shadow deeper. The wind moving through the trees sounded almost like whispers. Cole sat across from me on the other side of the fire, Orange light flickered across his face. For a while neither of us spoke. Then suddenly he laughed. What? We're idiots. I smiled despite myself. A little. My mom is going to kill me. Mine too. Actually, she'll kill you first. Thanks. Then me. Fair. A couple hours later the temperature dropped even more. Much colder than either of us expected. I pulled my jacket tighter. Cole did the same. Still shivering. Damn. You cold? No, he said through chattering teeth. I'm thriving. I laughed, then immediately regretted it because I was freezing too. We moved closer to the fire. Still cold. The problem was obvious. Neither of us packed for an overnight stay. Why would we? The hike was supposed to be one day. Nothing more. Now we were improvising. And nature wasn't interested in making things comfortable. Eventually Cole scooted closer. Close enough that our shoulders touched. Neither of us commented on it. Honestly, it made sense. Body heat. Practical. Normal. At least that's what I told myself. The problem was that my heart didn't seem interested in being practical. Every time his arm brushed mine, I noticed. Every time he shifted closer, I noticed. Every time he smiled at me across the firelight, I definitely noticed. You know, Cole said quietly. What? This is probably the weirdest weekend we've ever had. That's saying something. Remember Vegas? I groaned. We agreed never to discuss Vegas. He laughed. Fair. The sound echoed softly through the trees. And for a moment everything felt normal again. Just me and Cole. Like always. Hours passed. The fire burned lower. The forest grew quieter. Eventually Cole leaned back against the base of a tree. His eyes looked tired. Mine probably did too. You should sleep. He shook his head. You first. We're doing this? Yep. I rolled my eyes. We're not children. Says the guy who got us lost. Low blow. He grinned. Worth it. For a second I simply looked at him. Really looked at him. The firelight. The tired smile. The familiar face I'd seen thousands of times. And suddenly a strange thought hit me. If we got rescued tomorrow, nothing would change. We'd go home. Return to our lives. And I'd keep pretending I wasn't completely in love with my best friend. The thought hurt more than I expected. Maybe because being stranded out here had stripped away all the usual distractions. There was no work, no phones, no noise, just honesty. And the truth was becoming impossible to ignore. A sudden crack echoed somewhere deeper in the woods. Both of us froze. What was that? No idea. Another crack. Louder this time. Cole immediately sat upright. The darkness beyond the fire suddenly felt much closer. Much more threatening. Neither of us spoke. We just listened. Waiting. The sound came again. And this time it was definitely moving toward us. The sound came again. Closer. Much closer. Cole and I exchanged a look. Neither of us moved. The darkness beyond the fire seemed alive now. Every shadow looked suspicious. Every rustle felt important. Another branch snapped. Somewhere to our right. My pulse immediately sped up. What do we do? Cole whispered. I don't know. Excellent plan. I glared at him. He raised his hands. Sorry. Panic joke. A moment later we heard movement again. Heavy movement. Not human. At least I didn't think so. The sound circled somewhere beyond the trees. Hidden from view. My imagination immediately supplied worst-case scenarios. Bear. Mountain lion. Some horror movie monster. Anything felt possible. Then suddenly we heard a snort. Cole froze. What was that? A deer, I said. You sound very uncertain. I am. A few seconds later the animal finally stepped into view. A large deer. Just a deer. Nothing more. Nothing dangerous. The two of us sat there in silence. Watching it. The deer watched us. Then wandered away as if we weren't worth the effort. Cole let out a long breath. We almost died. It was a deer. A suspicious deer. I couldn't stop laughing. The relief hit all at once. And before long Cole was laughing too. The sound echoed through the woods. For the first time since getting lost, things didn't feel quite so hopeless. Eventually exhaustion won. Neither of us had slept much. The stress alone had drained us. We agreed to take turns resting. Cole volunteered first. Wake me in an hour. You'll probably wake up before then. True. Within 10 minutes he was asleep anyway. Typical. I sat by the fire watching the embers glow. The forest had become eerily quiet. The kind of silence that made every thought louder. And unfortunately, I had plenty of thoughts. Most of them involved the sleeping idiot 5 feet away. The thing about loving your best friend is that eventually you become an expert at hiding it. You learn what to say, what not to say, how to smile when they talk about someone they're dating, how to act normal when all you really want is more. I'd spent years doing exactly that. Years convincing myself it was enough, because losing Cole entirely would have been worse. At least that's what I always told myself. Looking at him now, asleep beneath the stars, I wasn't so sure anymore. The feelings never got smaller. If anything, they grew. Quietly, constantly, until they became part of me. Something permanent. Something impossible to ignore. I sighed and poked the fire with a stick. You're staring again. I nearly jumped out of my skin. Cole's eyes were open, a smug smile already forming. You're supposed to be asleep. Couldn't sleep. You absolutely were sleeping. Maybe. I rolled my eyes. He chuckled softly. The rest of the night passed slowly. Cold. Uncomfortable. Long. But eventually the sky began to brighten. Gray light filtered through the trees. Morning. Neither of us had ever been so happy to see sunrise. Still alive, Cole announced. Barely. Same. We packed up what little we had, finished the last of our water, and started moving. The plan was simple. Pick a direction. Stay consistent. Find a trail. Find people. Find literally anything. Easy in theory. Much harder in reality. The forest seemed endless. Hour after hour we walked. Sometimes uphill. Sometimes downhill. Always surrounded by trees. No roads. No trail markers. Nothing. By noon frustration was setting in. We were tired. Hungry. And increasingly aware of how isolated we really were. This is ridiculous. Cole kicked a rock. The rock immediately bounced back and hit his shoe. I laughed. Nature hates you. I noticed. We kept moving. Another hour passed. Then another. Still nothing. Around mid-afternoon, the weather changed. Fast. Dark clouds rolled overhead. The temperature dropped. Wind picked up. And before either of us could complain, rain started falling. Heavy rain. The kind that soaks you instantly. Oh, come on. Cole looked skyward. What did we do to deserve this? Apparently getting lost wasn't enough. Within minutes we were drenched. The forest floor became slippery. Visibility worsened. Everything became harder. Finding shelter suddenly became the priority. We eventually spotted a rocky outcrop ahead. Not much, but enough. A small overhang carved into the hillside. Dry ground underneath. Cole practically ran toward it. When we finally ducked inside, both of us were soaked and freezing. Well, I sat against the stone wall. This is rough. A lot. Rain hammered the forest outside. Neither of us looked eager to leave, which meant we were stuck there, together, for who knew how long. At first we sat quietly, listening to the storm, trying to stay warm. Then Cole shifted closer. Not dramatically, just enough. Our shoulders touched. Again. Neither of us moved away. The air felt different somehow. Maybe it was the isolation. Maybe the stress. Maybe the simple fact that we'd been alone together for almost 2 days. Whatever it was, I noticed it. And judging by the way Cole kept glancing at me, he did too. You know something? What? If we get out of this? I looked at him. He hesitated. For the first time all weekend, Cole seemed nervous. Genuinely nervous. What? He opened his mouth, then stopped. A loud crack of thunder interrupted him. The sound echoed through the forest. Both of us jumped. And suddenly, without thinking, Cole grabbed my arm. For a second, neither of us moved. His hand remained there, warm, firm. Neither of us looked away. And for the first time since this trip began, something shifted between us. Something neither of us could ignore anymore. For a second, neither of us moved. Cole's hand remained wrapped around my arm. The thunder faded into the distance, but the feeling stayed. His grip loosened slightly. Still, he didn't let go. Neither of us looked away. I could hear the rain pounding outside. Could hear my own heartbeat too, way too clearly. Then Cole finally cleared his throat and pulled his hand back. Sorry. It's fine. Another awkward silence settled between us. Not uncomfortable exactly, just different, like we'd crossed some invisible line without meaning to. The storm showed no signs of stopping. Rain continued pouring from the sky. Sheets of water crashed through the trees, turning the forest into a gray blur. We weren't going anywhere. Not yet. Cole leaned against the rock wall and sighed. I really miss my bed. I laughed. That's your biggest concern? Absolutely. We're stranded in the wilderness. Exactly. Which would be significantly easier if my mattress was here. I shook my head. You are unbelievable. Thank you. An hour later, we were still trapped beneath the overhang. The conversation drifted naturally. From work, to college memories, to old stories we'd told each other 100 times. Maybe it was the situation. Maybe it was the isolation. But talking felt different today. More honest. Less guarded. At one point, Cole became unusually quiet. I noticed immediately. What? You're thinking. He smirked. How can you tell? Because I've known you forever. The smile faded slightly. Yeah. Something about his expression made me pause. What is it? For a moment he seemed unsure whether to answer. Then he looked away. Can I ask you something? Of course. Cole took a breath. When was your last serious relationship? The question caught me off guard. A while ago. How long? Almost 2 years. He nodded slowly. Why? I shrugged. Haven't met the right person. That wasn't entirely a lie. The real problem was that I'd already met the right person. He was sitting 3 feet away, completely unaware. Or so I thought. Cole stared at the rain. You ever get tired of waiting? The question felt oddly personal. Sometimes. He nodded. Yeah. Neither of us said anything after that. The silence stretched. Not empty, just thoughtful. Then Cole laughed softly. What? I can't believe this is happening. What part? All of it. He gestured toward the storm. The getting lost. The rain. The fact that we're probably going to smell like wet dogs for a week. I smiled. We do smell terrible. Seriously terrible. For some reason we both started laughing. The kind of laughter that comes from stress and exhaustion. The kind that doesn't make much sense. But it felt good. Really good. Eventually the rain weakened. Then slowed. Then finally stopped. The forest became quiet once more. Cole stood first. Ready. As I'll ever be. We grabbed our packs and stepped back into the woods. Everything was soaked. Leaves. Branches. The ground itself. But at least we could move again. And honestly, neither of us wanted another night out there. The next few hours were exhausting. Mud slowed us down. The terrain became rougher. Several times we nearly slipped. Once Cole actually did. His feet flew out from under him and he landed flat on his back. I laughed immediately. Hard. You okay? No. Need help? No. I laughed harder. Cole pointed at me from the ground. You're a terrible friend. Probably. He grinned despite himself. As afternoon turned toward evening, something finally changed. A sound. Faint. Almost impossible to hear. Both of us stopped. Did you hear that? Cole frowned. Hear what? I listened carefully. There it was again. Very distant. A low mechanical noise. My eyes widened. Wait. What? I think that's an engine. For the first time all day, hope surged through me. A road. A vehicle. People. Civilization. Something. Anything. Cole immediately straightened. You're serious? I think so. We listened again. The sound was faint, but definitely there. And suddenly we had a direction. We moved faster than we had all day. Branches slapped against our clothes. Mud splashed everywhere. Neither of us cared. The sound grew stronger, then stronger still, until finally, a road. A real road. We burst through the trees and nearly collapsed from relief. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. We simply stood there staring at it. A narrow Forest Service road. Beautiful. Perfect. The greatest thing I'd ever seen. Cole actually laughed, then threw his arms into the air. We're alive. I couldn't stop smiling. We made it. We actually made it. The relief felt overwhelming, almost unreal. After nearly 2 days in the woods, we were finally out. Then Cole turned toward me. The excitement in his expression slowly softened. Neither of us spoke. The moment stretched unexpectedly, and suddenly I realized something. The trip was ending. Soon we'd find help, get home, return to normal life. Everything would go back to the way it was. For some reason, that thought hit harder than getting lost ever had. Because normal life meant pretending again. Pretending I didn't love him. Pretending I didn't want more. Pretending everything was fine. Cole looked at me for a long moment, as if he were thinking something similar. Then he said quietly, "You know, there's something I've been wanting to tell you." My heart immediately stopped. My heart immediately stopped. "You know, there's something I've been wanting to tell you." For a moment I couldn't speak, couldn't think. The words hit me harder than they should have. Because there was only one thing I wanted him to say. And there was almost no chance that was what he meant, right? Cole rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly looking more nervous than I'd ever seen him, which was saying something. This was the guy who once gave a presentation to 300 people without breaking a sweat. Now he couldn't seem to meet my eyes. "What is it?" I asked. He opened his mouth. Then a distant engine sounded down the road. Both of us turned instinctively. A truck, actually coming toward us. The moment shattered instantly. Cole sighed. "Never mind." My stomach dropped. "What?" "We should flag them down." Cole. But he was already stepping into the road. And a few moments later the truck pulled to a stop. The driver looked surprised. Honestly, I couldn't blame him. Two exhausted guys emerging from the forest looking like they'd survived a shipwreck wasn't exactly normal. "You boys okay?" "Yeah," Cole said. "Got lost hiking." The older man whistled. "You're about 15 miles from the main trail system." My jaw nearly hit the ground. 15 miles. No wonder we'd been wandering forever. The man offered us a ride to a nearby ranger station. We accepted immediately. Neither of us had enough pride left to refuse. The drive back felt surreal. Warm air, actual seats, civilization. It was incredible. And yet I barely noticed any of it. Because I couldn't stop thinking about what Cole almost said. Every time I looked at him, he was staring out the window, lost in thought, quiet, way quieter than usual. Something was definitely going on. I just had no idea what. The ranger station helped us contact our families. Apparently everyone had been worried sick. My phone finally charged enough to turn on. The screen exploded with notifications, texts, calls, voicemails, most of them variations of, "Where are you?" I quickly assured everyone we were alive, then spent the next hour answering questions. By the time everything settled down, evening had arrived. A local motel was the easiest option. Neither of us had any energy left for a long drive home. The motel wasn't fancy, but it had beds and showers. That automatically made it perfect. The woman at reception handed over a room key. "Last room available." I nodded gratefully, then froze. One room, one bed. Cole looked at me. I looked at him. The receptionist smiled. "Enjoy your stay." "Fantastic." 5 minutes later we stood inside the room. A very small room, with one very obvious bed. Neither of us spoke. Finally Cole broke first. "I call the left side." I laughed. "That's your concern?" "I'm trying to avoid the awkwardness." "It's not working." "I know." After nearly 2 days in the woods, the showers felt heavenly. I stayed under the hot water far longer than necessary, partly because it felt amazing, partly because I needed time to think. When I finally emerged, Cole was sitting on the edge of the bed, freshly showered, hair still damp, watching television without actually paying attention. He glanced up. "Feel human again?" "Almost." He smiled, then looked away. That same strange nervousness returned. The same thing I'd noticed on the road earlier. Whatever he'd wanted to tell me, it was still there. Night came quickly. Exhaustion settled into my bones. Neither of us had slept properly in almost 2 days. The bed was surprisingly large. Still, being this close to Cole wasn't helping my thoughts at all. The lights were off. The room was dark, and neither of us seemed capable of falling asleep. "You awake?" Cole's voice came from beside me. Obviously. Fair. Silence. Then, "Parker." "Yeah." Another pause. Longer this time. My pulse quickened. I wasn't joking earlier. I turned toward him. Even in the darkness I could make out his outline. "What do you mean?" "The thing I wanted to tell you." My heart started pounding. Hard. Very hard. "What about it?" Cole took a deep breath. The kind someone takes before jumping off a cliff. Then he spoke. "I've been trying to say it for months." Every muscle in my body tensed. Months. Not days. Not weeks. Months. "What are you talking about?" He laughed softly. A nervous laugh. "I was hoping getting lost in the woods might somehow make it easier." It didn't. Not even a little. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Couldn't do anything except listen. Then finally Cole turned toward me and asked the one question I never expected to hear. "Parker, have you ever thought about us being more than friends?" "Parker, have you ever thought about us being more than friends?" For a second, I genuinely thought I'd imagined it. The room was silent, dark, still, and yet somehow everything had changed. My heart was pounding so hard it felt impossible that Cole couldn't hear it. "What?" It was the only word I could manage. Cole let out a shaky laugh. "Yeah, that's about the reaction I expected." I pushed myself up onto one elbow, staring at him, trying to process what he'd just said, because there was absolutely no way I had heard him correctly. "Right? You mean?" I stopped, unable to finish the sentence. Cole looked toward the ceiling. "I mean exactly what I said." The room suddenly felt 10 degrees warmer. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Then Cole sighed. "I've handled this horribly." I blinked. "What? Seriously?" He rubbed his face. "I had an entire plan." "You had a plan?" "Not a good one. Despite everything." I almost laughed. That sounded like Cole. "How long?" I asked quietly. His hand dropped. "What? How long have you been thinking that?" The answer came immediately. "Almost a year." My breath caught. A year. An entire year. While I'd been spending every day convincing myself my feelings were one-sided. Cole stared at the ceiling. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't stop looking at him. "You've dated people." "So have you." Fair point. Still, none of it made sense. "When did this start?" He smiled faintly. "You remember that camping trip with our friend group last year? The one where Ethan fell into the lake?" Cole laughed. "Yeah." I smiled despite myself. Nobody had ever let Ethan forget that. "That weekend." I frowned. "What happened?" Cole turned toward me. His expression softened. "I realized I was looking forward to spending time with you more than anyone else." My pulse jumped. And then I spent months trying to convince myself it didn't mean anything. I understood that feeling far too well. The silence that followed felt different. Not awkward. Not uncomfortable. Just honest. Finally honest. For the first time in years. "You're serious?" The question came out quieter than I intended. Cole nodded. "Yeah." No hesitation. No uncertainty. Just certainty. The kind I'd secretly wanted for years. I looked away, trying to organize the chaos in my head. Because the truth was simple. I should have been thrilled, overjoyed, ecstatic. Instead, I felt overwhelmed. Not because I didn't want this, because I wanted it too much, for too long. And now that it was actually happening, it felt unreal. "Parker." I looked back at him. His expression immediately shifted. Concern replacing nervousness. "You okay?" I laughed softly. "You realize you're asking me that after completely changing my life." A smile appeared. A small one, but genuine. "That's not exactly a no." "No." His eyes widened slightly. "No." I couldn't help smiling. "No, it's not a no." For a second Cole just stared at me. Then he looked away and laughed. A relieved laugh. The kind that escaped before he could stop it. "Wow. Wow." I was prepared for a very different conversation. I shook my head. So was I. The next hour disappeared. Neither of us slept. Instead, we talked. Really talked. About everything we'd never said. The moments we'd noticed. The times we'd almost said something. The misunderstandings. The assumptions. All the wasted time. At one point, Cole groaned and buried his face in a pillow. What? You are unbelievably oblivious. I laughed. Me? Yes. You never said anything. Neither did you. Fair. Very fair. Eventually, the conversation slowed. Not because we ran out of things to say. Because exhaustion finally caught up with us. The emotional kind. The physical kind. All of it. The last 2 days suddenly hit at once. Getting lost. The storm. The fear. The relief. Everything. Cole looked at me. A long look. Different from every look we'd shared before. And somehow exactly the same. Good night, Parker. I smiled. Good night, Cole. For the first time in 2 days, I fell asleep almost immediately. The next morning felt strangely normal. Which was probably the weirdest part. The world hadn't changed. The motel room looked the same. The sunlight looked the same. Everything looked the same. And yet nothing was. Because when I looked at Cole, I no longer had to pretend. And apparently neither did he. The realization made me smile before I was fully awake. Cole noticed immediately. Oh no. What? You're smiling at nothing. I laughed. Shut up. This is serious. You've known for 1 day, and already you've become unbearable. A few hours later, we finally started the drive home. The forest disappeared behind us. Mile after mile. The whole ordeal already felt slightly unreal. Like something that had happened months ago instead of yesterday. But every now and then I'd glance over, see Cole smiling, and remember that it had all actually happened. Every part of it. Even the impossible part. Especially the impossible part. Still, there was one thing neither of us had addressed yet. And eventually, somewhere along the highway, Cole finally brought it up. So, I looked over. So, what happens now? So, I looked over from the passenger seat. So, Cole kept his eyes on the road. What happens now? There it was. The question both of us had been quietly avoiding. The highway stretched endlessly ahead of us. Sunlight filtered through the windshield. Everything felt strangely peaceful. And yet my stomach immediately tightened. Not because I didn't know what I wanted. Because I did. I just wasn't used to saying it out loud. For years, every thought about Cole had stayed locked inside my head. That was safer. Easier. Now suddenly I was expected to be honest. Terrifying. Well, I said slowly. Very confident start. Give me a second. Cole laughed. I smiled despite myself. The sound still did ridiculous things to me. Honestly, yeah. I don't know. His expression softened. That's fair. I glanced out the window. Rows of trees flashed by. Not nearly as intimidating now that we weren't trapped among them. I think we're figuring it out. Cole nodded. Together. The word hit me harder than it should have. Together. Simple. But somehow it felt important. Yeah, I said quietly. Together. For the rest of the drive, neither of us rushed anything. There was no dramatic plan. No sudden decisions. No pressure. Just conversation. The kind we'd always had. Only now there was something new underneath it. Something neither of us had to hide anymore. At one point Cole reached over and stole one of my fries. Seriously, he shrugged. You weren't eating them. I was literally reaching for one. Too slow. I shook my head. Some things never change. Good. The answer came quickly. Almost automatically. Good. I liked that. When we finally reached the city, reality started creeping back in. Traffic. Buildings. Responsibilities. Normal life. Part of me expected everything to feel different. But honestly, the biggest difference was how easy everything suddenly felt. No pretending. No second-guessing. No wondering. Just honesty. And after years of hiding my feelings, honesty felt surprisingly good. Cole dropped me off at my apartment first. Neither of us moved immediately. The engine idled softly. People walked along the sidewalk outside. Normal life continued. completely unaware that my entire world had shifted. Well, Cole looked at me. Well, I smiled. Neither of us seemed eager to leave. Finally, Cole sighed dramatically. This would be a lot easier if neither of us had jobs. Agreed. We should become professional hikers. I stared at him. We got lost. Details. I laughed. The smile lingered between us, then slowly faded into something quieter, something more serious. Cole looked nervous again, not as nervous as the motel, but close. What? He rubbed the back of his neck. I was thinking. Dangerous. Very. I grinned. Continue. His expression softened. I'm really glad you got lost with me. I blinked. That's a terrible sentence. I know. Objectively terrible. Still true. For a moment neither of us spoke, because I understood exactly what he meant. The trip had been miserable, cold, exhausting, stressful, at times genuinely frightening. And yet, if it hadn't happened, we'd probably still be pretending, still hiding, still dancing around the truth. I know what you mean, I admitted. Cole smiled. The real smile. The one that always got me. The one I'd fallen for years ago. Eventually, I opened the truck door. Neither of us seemed thrilled about ending the conversation, which was honestly ridiculous. We lived 20 minutes apart. It wasn't like one of us was disappearing forever. Still, things felt different now. Important. As I stepped out, Cole called my name. Parker. I turned back. Yeah. For a second, he looked almost uncertain. Then he smiled. Don't make me wait another 5 years to tell me what you're thinking. I laughed. No promises. Parker. Fine. His grin widened. Good. The following weeks were surprisingly easy. Not perfect. Not magical. Just real. Which honestly made it better. We spent time together. Talked. Learned how to navigate this new version of us. Some things changed. Most things didn't. We still argued over stupid things. Still stole each other's food. Still sent each other terrible memes at 2 in the morning. The friendship remained. It simply became something more. Something stronger. A month later, we returned to the same forest. On purpose this time. And with an actual GPS. Cole insisted. I refused to become one of those news stories. Fair. The trail looked completely different now. Less intimidating. More familiar. The weather was perfect. The sky clear. And somehow it felt right to be back. We stopped near a small overlook. The same mountains stretching across the horizon. The same endless sea of trees. Only this time we knew exactly where we were. Cole leaned against the railing. You realize this is technically your fault. What is? He gestured between us. All of this. I laughed. My fault. You got us lost. You followed me. Exactly. I shook my head. You make no sense. Never have. For a while we stood there quietly, looking out across the forest. The place that had accidentally changed everything. Then Cole bumped his shoulder against mine. The same way he had done 1,000 times before. Only now it meant something different. Something we both understood. And as I looked out at the woods where we'd once thought we might never find our way home, I couldn't help smiling. Because in a strange way, getting lost had been the best thing that ever happened to us. Not because of the fear, not because of the adventure, but because somewhere among those endless trees, after years of pretending, both of us had finally stopped running from the truth. And once we did, finding our way back became easy.